It's 23 minutes after 9. This is the Jan Michelson Show. I'm Mike Dorwart, Program Director here at News Radio 1040. 33rd day in Iowa, and I thank you for joining us. My guest is Senator Rand Paul, who is seeking the GOP nomination to run for President of the United States. Big milestone for your campaign, Senator Paul, announcing just over 1,000 caucus captains. Is that the right word?
Precinct chairman.
Precinct chairman. Thank you.
Yeah, and it is pretty amazing. In fact, we think we may well have the best organization in Iowa. We're the first one to release our precinct chairman list, and having over 1,000 with 3 more weeks to go, this is quite an achievement, and I think it may well be more than any other candidate at this point, but it's more than any other candidate has released at this point.
So what does a precinct chairman do for a candidate?
Well, caucuses are different than primaries. You show up and you're there for a while. We organize to speak at the caucus. Many of my immediate family and cousins and brothers and sisters will come up here, but also the precinct chairman of people who live in those precincts will speak that night. And I think in the caucus, there are still some people who show up and can be persuaded that night by the speeches.
We talked with some yesterday who said that exact thing. I'm going to wait and see what my friends and neighbors have to say.
Right, and that's the other thing that's kind of unusual about this season is that we seem to be so led by polling, but over half the people in the polls are still undecided, and we act as if it's set in stone. But some people have gone up 20 points in the last 3 weeks. Some people have gone down 20 points. So we think it's still wide open, and people are looking for the right candidate. And what I try to point out to people is that I'm the only fiscal conservative in the race because I'm willing to look at military spending and also at domestic spending. Most of the other Republicans just want to increase military spending indiscriminately, including Rubio and Cruz, who have voted to do it without offsetting spending cuts. But I've always been putting forward an alternative, that if you want to increase military spending, you've got to offset it with cuts to other domestic spending. I think that's the only fiscally conservative way to go about trying to make our national defense stronger.
Next week, there's going to be a debate with the GOP candidates in South Carolina. Currently, of course, it's a CNN debate, if I recall correctly, isn't it? Or is it Fox? Whatever. Whoever's doing it, they always have the undercard and the top card. Where do you stand in that process? Will you show up if they want to put you on that undercard half?
The good news is the last 2 national polls have showed us moving up, and we were 6th in the CNN poll, which qualifies us for the debate, and then we were 5th last week in the CBS poll. In fact, we're rising such that we were only 1 point out of 4th place and only 1 point behind Ben Carson in the most recent poll. So we think we'll make it and don't really have a problem with it. We do think, though, that people have a national campaign out of fairness that no media network or no party establishment should be able to decide who gets to debate and who doesn't get to debate.
Let's take a quick question from Indianola. Don, you have a quick question for Senator Paul.
Hey, Paul, glad to talk to you. And I don't understand why you're not the leading candidate. Only one on the Republican side that makes any sense is you. And I'm a Democrat.
All right. So the question is
why would anyone want to win the Iowa caucus when they never choose a winner? I mean, they act like it's important that you win here.
Right.
All
right. So winning in Iowa doesn't necessarily give you the big boost in the long run.
No, but Iowa's first. New Hampshire is second, and they're early primary states. There are also states that are small enough that you can actually individually meet a lot of voters, and it isn't just based on expense of who has the most money. So it actually is somewhat of an equalizing force to have smaller states as the early primary states. But whether the winner of Iowa goes on to win the whole thing, those who score in the top several places in Iowa do get a boost and a bump into the next process, and it becomes this huge wave, one after another. It starts out really slow with everybody campaigning in Iowa and New Hampshire for a year, but then once Iowa and New Hampshire are done, then it's just a huge avalanche of primaries and caucuses that come forward. But the best chance to fully examine the candidates is actually in Iowa and New Hampshire.
So you talk about the bump after Iowa and New Hampshire, not just a polling bump potentially, but I'm assuming there's a financial bump that goes with that.
Exactly. And the winner of Iowa has gone on to usually do pretty well. But first, second, third, fourth, I mean, there are a lot of positions, I think, out of Iowa that give you a boost going into New Hampshire.
What's been the biggest disappointment on the campaign trail?
Let's see. Maybe snow's a problem. Can you do something about
You
the
get that
snow?
in Kentucky? Come
Yeah,
on.
we do. It's not really necessarily the snow. It's the snow and what it does to the airports. And so travel is difficult, and it makes it a longer possibility. I kind of joke that, I do have my own airplane, but it just doesn't have my name on it. It unfortunately says Southwest on the side of it,
Unless you change your name.
There
to
you go.
Southwest.
So we're sort of beholden to the airports and the airplanes, and that makes travel difficult, particularly in the winter.
What's been the best part of the campaign experience?
I think recognizing that people are looking for something different, that there are people who are frustrated like myself, that Congress has not exerted the power of the purse, that Congress is not trying to stop President Obama more, and also that particularly in the last presidential debate, we debated whether regime change is a good idea, whether toppling Gaddafi in Libya made us safer or less safe. I think we're winning that argument, my side, because we toppled Gaddafi in Libya and we got chaos, the murder of our ambassador. We now have a failed state in Libya, and over a third of Libya now pledges allegiance to ISIS. So if you're concerned about terrorism, it isn't always, like Ted Cruz, he's going to make the sand glow. Maybe it's about thinking through whether or not toppling these leaders in the Middle East has made us safer or less safe, and are there more terrorists after we topple a secular dictator or less? So I think these are things that need to be discussed, and there needs to be I think an intelligent debate about whether or not when we get involved in the Middle East, are things better or worse.
So what's your schedule look like the rest of the day? Are you making appearances in Des Moines? You heading out? What's the plan?
We will be everywhere. So many places that I can't tell you where they all are. But if you go to randpaul.com, people can look at our schedule there. And we'd love to see all our events are open to the public. And we'd love to see you there.
Thank you for your time this morning. Appreciate it. Look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you.
Senator Rand Paul, our guest here on News Radio 1040.